Welcome to the Ringer NFL show. I'm your host, Sheil Kapadia. Where are we with the AFC playoff picture after 10 weeks? That's what we're talking about today. Patriots with a big win in Tampa. Bills get stomped by the Dolphins. Ravens, a much-needed win in Minnesota. And the Chargers just smoked the Steelers on Sunday night. So where are we now? Where are we going to be at season's end? Let's make some predictions. To do that, we've got my friend Diante Lee. We will talk about the AFC playoff picture after the break. This is the Ringer NFL show presented by FanDuel, the best place to bet the NFL all season long. FanDuel's got it all. Same game parlays, quick bets for jumping in live, and your way so you can build the bet that fits your play. And Missouri, get excited because FanDuel's coming your way December 1st. Download the FanDuel.com/Ringer NFL to get started. Must be 21 plus and present in select states and 18 plus in DC, Kentucky, and Wyoming. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit rg-help.com. Call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut. We are back with Diante Lee talking AFC playoff picture after week 10. Diante, let me give you what it would be right now. So if the playoffs started today, the Colts would be the first seed, then the Broncos, Patriots, and Steelers as the other division winners, and the wild cards would be the Chargers, the Bills, and the Jaguars. In that order, unless, of course, the commissioner was like, after that Jaguars game, you cannot be in the playoffs. I'm sorry, which is possible. He could incorporate that rule. So those are the 7 now. We're going to start with the division winners. We haven't told each other what our picks are yet. We're going to say what we think the division winners are going to be at the end of the season. And Diante, I've only got 2 of those 4 division winners hanging on. And I'm going to start with the 1 seed. I think the Patriots are going to be the 1 seed in the AFC. I can't believe I'm saying this. If you would have told me in August that this was going to be my take after week 10, I would have thought something very weird, something horribly wrong went on with some of these quarterbacks in the AFC. But as I went through this exercise, they're 8-2. They have the second easiest remaining schedule, according to the betting market. So even if they go 5-2 the rest of the way, which I think seems reasonable, they're going to go 13-4. And I think 13 wins would be good enough to win the 1 seed. So I've got Chiefs as the 1 seed. I'm sorry, Patriots as the 1 seed. Chiefs as the 2 seed. Colts as the 3 seed. And Ravens as the 4 seed. Those are my 4 division winners. What do you have that's the same? What do you have that's different?
I think that we're going to have the same 4 division winners. It's actually funny doing this exercise now. So much of this turns into a math game, right? Once you kind of cross that midway point, you start counting presumed, right? What we presume to be certain wins. And then from there, I kind of try to play within a half game or so of where I think a team is going to land. So I think we're going to be pretty aligned here. The only thing is that I'm flipping my 1 seed to the Indianapolis Colts. I think that they have a little bit tougher of a prove it stretch, right? You're going to have to see Seattle. You've got to see Kansas City. You still got a few divisional games that could be tricky with Jacksonville and Houston. But I like what I've seen from them so far this year. I think the first half of Sunday's game, notwithstanding, right? I think that for the most part, they played pretty well. And then
you really think the Colts are hanging on for the 1 seed? If I told you you pick 1 seed, 1 team right now, your life savings depends on it, you're going with the Colts.
I am, because I don't trust Jacksonville. I don't trust Houston. I think they can beat San Francisco. And I think that if you're able to get to end of December, early January with 11-12 wins, which I do think is a legitimately not just an aspirational goal, but an attainable one for Indianapolis. They should be able to cruise, I think, to 12-13 wins, which will have them right there to potentially be the top overall seed, not just in the AFC, but in the NFL overall. And then for 2, for me, I've got New England. I think they'll be right around that kind of 12-13 win because they've got the Jets, they've got the Bengals, they've got the Giants. Honestly, their December 14th game against the Bills could basically be to seal their spot in the playoffs, right? They could be one of those teams that's cruising pretty quickly. And then I would say my third and fourth seeds will be Denver and Baltimore, right? I think that Denver's very well positioned. As a matter of fact, of our division winners, I think they've kind of got the clearest pathway to feeling safe and secure about their spot in the playoffs. Because as long as they handle business against Washington and Vegas, they can kind of coast, right? Like they can honestly get swept by Kansas City, split their series with the Chargers, and be able to kind of waltz into the playoffs. So, and as an AFC West winner, so I feel pretty good about that top four, with Baltimore kind of rounding it out because they've got such a light schedule. But I do think Indianapolis is going to hold on to the 1 seed, and I think that New England and Denver are going to cruise basically to 2 and 3.
All right, this is good. We disagree on a couple of these, so I'm happy about that. All right, I'm taking the other side on the Colts thing. You mentioned it. Their remaining schedule is pretty tough. They're at the Chiefs, at the Seahawks. They faced that Texans defense twice. They've got the 49ers. I don't think they're going to be the 1 seed. I think they're going to come down to earth a little bit in the second half of this. I think they're a good team. Don't get me wrong. I mean, they put up 519 yards of offense. However, what's the thing we've seen with Daniel Jones in the past? It's the negative plays. I mean, he fumbled 3 times in this game, was intercepted once. And the week before, we saw against the Steelers team, which looked awful on Sunday night. They lose to that team the week before. The last 2 games, Daniel Jones, 6 fumbles, 4 interceptions. Again, I think they're a good team. I think they can move the football on most opponents, but I think this is going to get a little up and down for them in the second half of the season, where I see them more as like an 11-win team that's going to be playing well, and you're going to go, all right, they don't look quite as good as they did early in the season, but they're still winning the division. They're still hosting a playoff game in the first round. But I will be surprised if they cruise to the 1 seed. I could be wrong. I faded them before and been wrong, but that will really surprise me if when all is said and done, they finish with the 1 seed.
I think that's fair. I guess for me, the idea of playing San Francisco doesn't really strike as much fear in my heart with the status of their defense, especially coming off what we just saw on Sunday against the Rams, right? They were kind of able to move the ball at will and were able to get stops against the 49ers offense that had really been finding something that worked in October. And I think that now they're kind of starting to hit that wall as teams are adjusting to more of the quick game, more of the underneath stuff, more of the force feeding to Christian McCaffrey and George Kittle and all that. So I think that Indianapolis can handle a team like that. And then based off what I've seen from Houston and Jacksonville, I think it's entirely possible that Indianapolis sweeps both of those teams. If you had to rank competence in the AFC South, there is a sizable gap to me between Indianapolis and the rest of their competition in their division.
If you just did dumb teams, not dumb teams.
Right, exactly. Right. If we got to boil it down to those binaries, I think that you would say that there's a pretty big gap between Indianapolis and the rest of their competition. And that's considering some of the turnovers that you mentioned over the last couple of weeks. I do think from a narrative perspective, we are probably about as close to rock bottom as we'll get for Indianapolis, because they've had these 2 games and they've got to see Kansas City and Houston, right? So this 4-game stretch, basically from the Pittsburgh game last week all the way up to the Texans game at the end of November, we could be talking about oh my God, what's wrong with this offense? They're not getting the explosive plays in the passing game as often. Maybe, Kansas City really sells out to stop the run and they have a really rough game against the Chiefs in that respect. And then after that, I think that they can kind of cruise, and the result of the Seattle game really won't tell us anything about this team either way. That's not a game that they have to win. That's not a game that they have to play their best in. It will be a bellwether game, I think, for us as analysts and fans to see which of those 2 teams are real. But this team could very easily be in December feeling like we've already got our division sewn up. We can probably play New England game for game, to try to win the 1 seed. And if they don't get it, I think that'll be fine. I just don't think they'll be further than a game away from getting the 1 seed in the AFC.
All right. I like it. We disagree on the Colts. Diante thinks they're going to kind of keep up this pace as much as they need to get that 1 seed. I don't. And then come on, Diante, the Broncos are not winning the AFC West. The Chiefs are winning the AFC West. Come on. They are a better team than the Broncos. They still get to play Denver twice. I mean, we watched, maybe you didn't watch that game on Thursday night. If you didn't, more power to you.
I suffered through that.
You suffered through it. You want it on the record? Okay. I mean, the Chiefs get the Broncos twice. They get the Chargers at home. Now, I hear why you're picking the Broncos. I mean, the Chiefs have dug themselves a bit of a hole here. They're 5-4. Neither of us are picking the Chargers, who are 7-3, and the Broncos are 8-2. So there is space to be made up there. But I kind of feel about the Broncos similarly to what I just mentioned with the Colts. I mean, when I watched that offense, and we're now going into week 11 here, I was trying to give them the benefit of the doubt. All right, they're winning games. Let's see what it looks like. And there's still a chance it looks a lot better. But Bo Nix right now is 31st in dropback success rate. The only quarterbacks less likely to produce a positive result when they have to pass are Cam Ward and Dylan Gabriel. That is not the profile of a team that is holding off Patrick Mahomes.
Being behind Justin Fields is nasty. That's a nasty place to be as a quarterback.
It's not a good place to be. All due respect, Justin. So I cannot, in good conscience, pick that team to hold off Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid in the AFC West. Tell me why I'm wrong.
I think we'll have more extensive conversations about Kansas City once we get to the wild card, right? Because as you can see, I don't have them in my division winners. I think that so much of this exercise for me is more about margin for error than anything, right? And this is where I think that for as bad as this offense has looked, those fourth quarter comebacks will really come to kind of save Denver's skin in the playoff picture. The fact that they didn't blow that game to the Giants, the fact that they were able to put up all those second half points against the Cowboys, that they were able to eke out that win against the Texans, right? Like those games end up mattering in this scenario.
All right, now we both have the Ravens, which is just like a hipster podcastery move where this team's 4-5. And we're like, of course, the Ravens. Now, I feel pretty good about it. And we both have the Patriots, who are 8-2. Now, the Bills are 6-3. They still play each other again. The Bills have the history, the pedigree. How confident did you feel in those two picks, Patriots over Bills and Ravens leapfrogging the Steelers?
Patriots I feel great about because of how soft their schedule is, right? Like I said, by the time they see Buffalo again, that could basically be for the fate of the AFC East, right? They might be a 10-11 win team, especially if they beat all three of New York, Cincinnati, both New York teams in Cincinnati, and come into that game at 11-2. That could basically be to seal it. Honestly, that could be confirmation of what you said earlier in the show. That game could be for the number 1 overall seed in the AFC, right? If they're able to win that game. So I feel pretty solid about them over Buffalo. On the other end, I think that it's easy for us to look at what Baltimore has done over the last 3 weeks and feel great about their trajectory right now. And the schedule is soft. Don't get me wrong. You get Cincinnati twice. You get the Steelers twice, which gives you an opportunity to really seal your tie-breaking fate. You get Cleveland and you get the Jets, right? So that's entirely possible that they win all 6 of those games. The problem is that there's really no margin for error in spite of how soft the schedule is. If they get to mid-December and that game against the Packers and that game against the Patriots are must-win games for their playoff lives, more often, like I would say, if we were simulating this out, more often than not, they'd end up missing the playoffs if that's the case. If they go into that last 3-game stretch against the Packers, Patriots, and then their second game against the Steelers, and all 3 are must-wins, I think they're going to be in a bad spot. They're going to need some help from Pittsburgh, but I do think they should be able to handle their lighter games against the Browns, against the Bengals, and against the Jets. And then from there, they just got to be on their P's and Q's when they see other contenders across the NFL.
Yeah, they're in a nice spot in that they play the Steelers twice here, and it could be one of the, who knows how many wins is actually going to win that division. It's not like they were perfect today against Minnesota. It was kind of like one of those old school, like they were creating turnovers, winning on special teams. I just go back to when Lamar Jackson starts a game for them, they're 72-27 in the regular season. They don't lose. So it's like, it's easy for me to get to, they're going to go 6-2 or 7-1 down the stretch, like you mentioned with that schedule. So yeah, I feel I don't have to think twice about that. Maybe it's just because we watched that Steelers, the Steelers play here on Sunday night, but there's no part of me that's second guessing that. And then the Patriots, I mean, that was a big win for them today. And Drake May's going to get a lot of the headlines this week, and Drake May's been awesome. He made some unbelievable plays in this game. The pocket management, the accuracy downfield. I mean, it was incredible. But I thought, Diante, this was a huge win for the Patriots because it was what happened after he threw that interception where, you look at that and if other things play out differently, we're going, oh man, Drake May wasn't ready for this spot. And he threw the interception with 5 minutes left. But after that, their defense gets a stop. And then Travion Henderson with the 69-yard touchdown run. So I've always had this question all year, like, I believe what I'm seeing with Drake May, but like the rest of this team, I don't know. Can they win in different ways? I thought that was a big win for them in that they showed, hey, we do have other areas of this team. They're not perfect, but like in a big spot that they can come through for us.
You made exactly the point that I was going to make, right? The question we have of New England is, do you have other avenues outside of Drake May to win football games? And we finally saw them dust off Travion Henderson, and he's able to deliver immediately with explosive runs. Tampa Bay's run defense is usually pretty good, right? And I thought early in the game, at least, they were really loading up the line of scrimmage, not allowing New England to get ahead of steam, even in short yardage situations when you knew that New England was going to play with heavier bodies. I thought the Tampa Bay handled themselves well. I thought that within the flow of the game, Josh McDaniels did a good job at finding those opportunities to crack open that defense in the run game. And then Travion Henderson, I think, is going to be a big difference maker down the stretch. I think that for me, this, again, and maybe this is just a story of the AFC in general, right? The teams that we're talking about at the top of this conference are all extremely flawed, right? I do think that New England can be a 13-win team. Do I view them as the same kind of 13-win team that Philadelphia was in 2022? No. Do I view them as a kind of 13-win team that Kansas City has been at their best? No, but it might not matter, right? Because they've got the wins against the softer teams on their schedule, and that's exactly what you're going to have to do to be able to seal those home games once you get to the postseason. I feel okay about them. I think that they are solidly a playoff team because of how well Drake May has been playing. I just don't know, man, when they're playing up against top competition, whether or not we can rely upon what we saw in the second half of Sunday's game. And I'm just going to need more evidence that we're not going to get because they have such a light schedule the rest of the way.
Yeah, it really is one of the easiest schedules in the NFL. If they don't trip themselves up, they really do have a great path to the 1 seed. And if you're the 1 seed and you host games in the playoffs and you get a bye, any team that wins the 1 seed, regardless of what you think of them, they got a chance to win the Super Bowl because it is such an advantage in that way. All right, let's take a break. We come back. Let's find out who Diante has as his wildcard teams. The Ringer NFL show is brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel is changing the way you live bet football, and it starts with Next Drive SGPs. Now you can bet what's happening on the next drive. Will it end in a touchdown, a punt, a field goal? Then stack player props and build your bet exactly how you want it. And every NFL game day comes with a profit boost you can use on your Next Drive SGP. Visit FanDuel.com/RingerNFL to download the app today and bet the next drive your way. Must be 21 plus and present in select states or 18 plus and present in DC, Kentucky, or Wyoming. Opt-in required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable profit boost tokens. Restrictions apply, including any token expiration and max wager amount. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit rg-help.com. Call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut. This episode is brought to you by Apple. Before it was Ringer NFL, it was just an idea. I started with just a mic and a Mac and the need to discuss all things football. We thought, are we going to do a daily show? Are we going to change the logo? Who are the guests going to be? What are the topics going to be? Listen, we're still figuring it out, but no matter what you have an idea for, whether it's creating your own commentary on this week's games, starting a platform for your take on sports, or even founding your own league, go for it. You just need to get started. Your great ideas start on Mac. Find out more on apple.com/Mac. All right, we are back on the Ringer NFL show. All right, Diante, I'll start. Okay, I've got the Bills at 5. We can talk about what we saw today, how concerned we are with them. We agree there. Okay. I've got the Broncos 6. So I had the Chiefs winning the division. Do you have the Chiefs at 6 or no?
Finish your list. I want to hear where the rest of your list goes.
Okay. I got the Broncos 6 and I have the Chargers 7 after that win on Sunday night. So I've got Bills, Broncos, Chargers. What do you got?
Okay, I'm glad. I wanted you to finish your list because I want to give you mine. And then
I think
excited that maybe there's a larger discussion to be had from there. So 5, as I said, we agree, Buffalo. 6, I have the Chargers. And then 7, I have the Jacksonville Jaguars as a 7 seed. I have the Jacksonville Jaguars as a 7 seed.
You did not say the Kansas City Chiefs, and you just said Jacksonville Jaguars.
I did. Now, I'm saying I think that this is a larger conversation that we should have about the way the playoff picture stands right now. Right. And I'm not saying that if we had to put, a meal or two on it, that this is what I would land on. Maybe this is a little bit of argument's sake, but I think that there is a solid foundation for this playing out the rest of the way down the season.
Okay, what's the case? Give me the case. I need to hear this.
So at the center of it, it said Jacksonville owns a tiebreaker. And I think that is what's going to...
Jacksonville also owns the dumbest team in the NFL. I just want to be clear.
No argument. No argument coming from Lemon Grove, California on that one. Okay. I want to make that abundantly clear. This is not in any way a vote of confidence for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Okay. Especially based off of what we've seen from them over the last few weeks on the field. But them owning the tiebreaker, I think, is going to loom large. And then I think that for them, they've got the Titans twice. You get to play the Jets. You get to play the Cardinals, who are kind of adrift right now. And I think that really their golden opportunity, if they're able to handle their business in those 4 games that I mentioned, their golden opportunity, I think, is next week against the Chargers. If you go out and you beat the Chargers, now you've really got a chance, I think, to own your fate in the AFC wildcard race, because now you would have wildcard tiebreakers over both AFC West teams that we're talking about here between the Chargers and the Chiefs. And then on the other end of it, while I trust wholeheartedly Kansas City, I wholeheartedly trust Kansas City. I actually have their win projection for me at 9.5 and Jacksonville's at 8.5. I just gave Jacksonville the jump because they own the tiebreak. But they do have to play the Broncos twice. They do have to beat the Colts. They do have to beat the Chargers. And then they've got these 2 absolutely cannot lose games against the Texans and Cowboys. Those are the 2 games to me. If they go out and they blow out those 2 teams, and I think they play both in November, then we can come back to this conversation. I will say, okay, they're fine. I think that they'll be able to get the wins that they need. I can totally see Jacksonville taking a step back and they're able to sneak in as a 7 seed. I just think if you're looking at the projections right now, it's not necessarily as firm of a case that Kansas City gets in, as much as our level of trust in Kansas City figuring it out. I do not think that the math is working in their favor right now.
Listen, you know me, I'm team content, so I love this. I had no idea. I thought maybe your spicy take was going to be like the Broncos, or I didn't think it was going to be the Chiefs not making the playoffs. I think the Chiefs are about to go on a run. I think they're coming back from the bye. I think they are going to have a very strong finish to the season. I know those teams you mentioned, it's not all easy teams, but I think they're finishing with 11 or 12 wins and they're going to be firmly in the playoff picture. I mean,
you got them like running the table the way, almost running the table the rest of the way through.
I think they potentially could go like 7-1. Is that what it would be? Yeah, 9.
I think,
yeah. I think they could go 7-1 down the stretch. I think they're going to look like one of the best teams in the NFL over the next couple months here. That Jaguars team, man, I just can't with 29-10 in the.
I'm with you. It kills me to even make this argument because this is not a team I believe in. It's not a team I believe in. I'm just looking at them play the Titans, the Jets, and the Cardinals, and I'm like,
they'll lose some of those games. They'll lose some of those games they shouldn't lose that they're favored. They were favored in this game against Davis Mills, and they allowed 3 straight touchdown drives to end the game. Trevor Lawrence does not complete a pass on their final 3 possessions. So you're right. I mean, listen, it's good to not have the recency bias that I have right now and just say the Jaguars beat the Chiefs and they're both 5-4. So there is a reasonable, level-headed case for your argument. I just absolutely cannot get there. All right. So
there's a reason why you're doing Ringer 107 and I'm not. Okay. Because I would be the bozo that makes this fix. And then I look like the idiot that's picking against Kansas City the rest of the way through.
Well, the way my season's been going, no one would agree with that. Although good week for us here in week 10. All right. So we both had the Broncos in. You got them winning the division. I have them as a wild card. We both have the Chargers in, which might, some people could say that's a little, are you sure the Chargers are in? The Chargers are 7-3. And Diante, I watched that game tonight against the Steelers, and I'm just like, it feels like Jim Harbaugh is in the class of, unless his quarterback has a season-ending injury, I should probably just pick him and make the playoffs every year. Like they were out Steelering the Steelers. They were not chargering. I mean, they're just, all right, we don't have to be great tonight, but let's win with special teams, turnovers, defense, make a couple plays on offense. And I just feel like that's probably going to continue the rest of the way where we get to the playoffs and we're not saying they can make the Super Bowl, but I do feel pretty strongly that they're going to be in the playoffs now at 7-3.
Again, trust. This is a combination of trust and math, right? Like, I think if I'm taking how I feel about the quarterback, if I'm taking how I feel about the head coach out of it and just looking coldly at the quality of roster, the quality of games they've played, and the upcoming games on their schedule, I would actually say that the Chargers, more so than Jacksonville, are the team with the biggest meltdown opportunity because they do have to see Jacksonville. So there's a tiebreak opportunity there. They've got to play both Philadelphia and Kansas City. They've got to see Denver again. And similar to Kansas City's can't lose opportunities, they also play the Texans and Cowboys. Those are two absolutely cannot lose games for the Chargers, right? So I think that they're in a very similar position. You could just as easily sell me on them being 11-6 as you can sell me on them being 9-8 and having to wait for, the rest of the games on week 18 to play out to find out whether or not they're going to make the postseason. It's tenuous, but I do think, to your point, after coming out of Sunday night's game, it's hard to feel bad about the brand of football they play. Because they basically took what the Steelers have done over the entire Mike Tomlin era and gave it right back to them. We're not going to make the mistakes. We're going to sit on the ball and we're going to wait for you to make the mistake and we'll take advantage of it, right? And chances are that, that's going to be good enough to get them over the line. I just think that it's really tenuous. I think after the fifth seed, after Buffalo, who seems pretty safe to me, I think that you could tell me any of Los Angeles, Jacksonville, Kansas City, and Pittsburgh could end up making up those last two seeds. And I think that it is perfectly within the realm of possibility.
All right, there you go. We both have Pittsburgh out. We both didn't like what we saw from Buffalo today, but Buffalo 6-3. So we are not letting the complete recency bias take over and say they're out of there. They're still going to be a playoff team, although I'm sure we'll talk about them more in the weeks ahead if they continue to have games like they had against Miami. All right, that was a lot of fun. Diante surprising me. Thank you to Diante Lee for joining me. Once again, I'll be right back with the Hurry Up. The Hurry Up is our closing segment where I give you a take on news in the NFL and big story out of Detroit. Head coach Dan Campbell took over play calling duties for the Lions on Sunday during their win over the Commanders. There was a report from NFL Network during the game that said there were lots of indications of a disconnect between offensive coordinator John Morton and the players and coaches. Now, the context here, of course, is important because Ben Johnson had been the Lions OC. He left to become the Bears head coach. Campbell picked Morton to replace him. And statistically, the Lions offense had been pretty good. But just last week, Brian Flores kind of put Jared Goff in a blender in that loss to the Vikings. And so Dan Campbell opted for a change. Now, the Lions offense looked great on Sunday. They scored 44 points. It was actually the best game by any offense this season, according to EPA per drive. But the Commanders' defense is horrible. So we need to see more of the sample with Campbell as the play caller. This is really interesting, in my opinion, for two reasons. One, because Campbell is generally excellent with his game management. We always talk about him as kind of that leader, CEO type head coach. And when you're doing that, you're making the decisions in game, but you're leaving the play callers to your coordinators. Now, if he's calling the plays, it's another thing on his plate. So let's see if the game management suffers. And that might not sound like a big deal, but I do think it's a big deal because that has been a big edge for Campbell and the Lions. The other thing I'm curious about is just how this plays out the rest of the way. Campbell was in his post-game press conference with the media. He was preaching collaboration and it felt like he kind of wanted to downplay the move, but it feels like once you make this move, you can't go back. You have already told us with the change that you don't think Morton was doing a good enough job. So I guess Campbell is just the play caller going forward, and either they succeed with him in that role or they fail with him in that role, and then they figure out the rest after the season. So really interesting change, wrinkle, whatever you want to call it, on a Lions team that, they weren't like in panic mode or anything. They were a good team, but they've got a legit chance to get to the Super Bowl. And obviously, apparently, Campbell feels like he's got to be the one calling the plays over Morton. That gives them their best chance to get there. So I'm sure this is something we'll talk about more in the days and weeks ahead, but just wanted to give a quick reaction here. All right. Thanks to Diante Lee. Thank you to Christopher Sutton for producing, Kiera Givens on social, and additional production supervision by Conor Nevins and Arjuna Ramgopowell. A lot more coming this week. We'll talk to you tomorrow on the Ringer NFL Show. Must be 21 plus and present in select states. For Kansas, in affiliation with Kansas Star Casino, or 18 plus and present in DC, Kentucky, or Wyoming. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit rg-help.com. Call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut or visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts, or call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York.